Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or as we like to say here at Shady Acres Woodshop, howdy. Today we have a piece of we don't know what, but it's a beauty. This comes to us from viewer Jim in Pennsylvania. The piece is about 7 by 7 by about 4 inches tall. There's the bottom. That's where I'm going to drill a hole in the middle for my woodworm screw. Now it's not ideal, but I have to have room on the bottom for a tenon or a recess, most likely a recess. You can see it's just an odd shape. I love the textures in this piece. So this is going to be another non-turned bowl. I'm not going to turn the outside of this. I mean, look at that. How could you ever duplicate that? You couldn't duplicate that in the shop. It's just gorgeous. I don't know if it laid out in the weather. He said it came from inside his shop, but I don't know if it laid out in the weather before that or what, but it's gorgeous and I must save that, and so I shall. So I'm going to drill that hole. I'll get it mounted up on the lathe over here and we'll get to turning. In looking this over, I might turn some of the outside. I don't want to turn all of it. But I might turn this lower third or so to expose some of what is probably beautiful grain. Or I might not. I don't know. I am going to go up higher because it gets wider as we go up. And I'd like a little more space here for my tenon or recess, whichever we go with. I don't know. So I am going to go up that way a little bit. I don't have to go much, maybe half an inch or so. We're going to be turning at 700 RPM. 5/8 inch bowl gouge, mask and face shield on. Make that 600 RPM. Well, we didn't gain much in width. I kind of think this might be cherry. The color kind of looks like cherry. The green kind of looks like cherry. I'm going to go a little bit higher. Well, let's see what that looks like with a mark out for a tenon or a recess. What do you think? Turn some of the outside or not? It's just so beautiful the way it is. Even if I do, I'll only be turning mostly this large projection here. Maybe a little bit over here. Yeah, here and here. I want to, but then I don't want to regret it. Well, let's go with probably a recess. This is end grain, so I want to make sure there's no cracks in there, but it looks quite substantial. I'm going to switch to a smaller gouge to make that recess. Just a 1/2 inch. And I'm going to use my recess tool to create the dovetail on the side here. Yep, that'll do it. Well, turn some on the outside or not? I can't hear you. I guess not. So that means we're done. Time for sanding. I'm going to start sanding with my Sandoflex. This is 120 grit. Typically I do 180 grit with this, but because this is quite rough and weathered, I'm going to start at 120 and then I'll go to 180 on all of this, and I'll stop there at 180. After I've done that, then with the lathe spinning forward at about 350, I'll sand the bottom with my 2-inch sanding disc starting at 80 grit and working up through 400. And I'll show you both of those as soon as I get my mask on. So I'll do a lot more of that, but that's generally what it looks like. And that'll clean it up and make it feel much better than it does currently. So that's what I'll be doing for a bit. I'll bring you back here and we'll put some sanding sealer on there. See in a bit. Oh, it's going to make quite a bit of difference. I know you think it's ugly right now, but it won't be. You'll see. Well, this part's going to go quick, but then the sides are going to have to be brushed, and it'll take a while. But this is going to be beautiful. You'll see. You'll see. I've got sanding sealer in this little can, and I'm going to brush it on. And it's going to bring out all these beautiful colors in this natural area. Well, it's soaking in there so fast, it just plain disappears as soon as I brush it on. So this is going to take a few coats, and it's going to take some time. So I'll put on 2 or 3 coats of this sanding sealer. This is shellac based sanding sealer called Zinsser Seal Coat. And then I'll put on at least 2 coats of shellac in exactly the same manner, so I won't show you that. It looks just like this, no difference at all. A brush and a rag, a brush and a rag. It's just going to be beautiful. And then the grain on the inside of this is going to be like this, I suppose, probably more beautiful. So I'll get this all on here and I'll bring you back and it'll be time to work on the inside. I think I'll probably drill it out before I do any turning on the inside. The piece isn't that big, but it's kind of deep at about 4.5 inches. I think drilling it out will be less impact than turning it with a chisel. Bang, 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 bang. So I'll probably drill it and then we'll do some turning and like that. What do you think? What do you think so far? Looking better, right? See you in a bit. I've turned the piece around with the tenon or the recess mounted up on the chuck. I gotta tell you about this outside finish that I got on here. It didn't look as good as I thought it was gonna look. It looked good when it was wet, but then when it finally dried, there's so many, I can't say punky because they're not soft, super dry spots, I guess, where the finish just soaked in and soaked in and soaked in. I put on so many coats of sanding sealer and then 2 coats of shellac, and it's as if I didn't do it. Except in some places. In some places it was shiny, and other places it was flat. Rather than what I normally do, which is nothing to this kind of finish, to this kind of surface, like bark and bark inclusions and whatnot, I don't normally abrade that. I don't go over it after I put the finish on. I do, of course, on a turned surface, but not on those places. I don't normally. But I did. I went over it with my Sandoflex at 180 grit in an effort to dull the shiny spots so that it all kind of matches. And now it's pretty close. There's still a few shiny spots, but mostly it's just kind of a flat finish, which actually looks better than it did. I'm getting ready to drill a 2-inch hole with a Forstner bit, and then I'll follow that with a 2 3/4 inch hole, which will get me out here ready to run off the edge in these 2 spots. And that's as big as I'll go. I do have my dust collector placed under this to save on cleanup. Lathe is spinning at 200 RPM, and here we go. Well, I can see that's going to be real boring for you. I'll be doing that. I'll bring you back when the hole is drilled. Well, I guess I'm going to be doing a really minimal amount of turning on this piece, aren't I? Didn't turn any of the outside, and I can't really turn the inside because the wall is so thin here, and even worse over here. I'll come right out the side if I try and hollow it. So all I can really do is just blend this edge right here and clean up the top, of course. It is beautiful grain. Sure does look like cherry to me. I'm gonna have the lathe running a little slower than it was because the piece is still out of balance, and I'm trying to keep vibration to a minimum. So it's going to be 560 RPM, 5/8 inch bowl gouge, mask and face shield on. I feel bad I'm not giving you much of a show here. That's about all I can do outside of sanding and finishing. I guess it's time for sanding and finishing. I'm going to use a couple of different methods to take care of the sanding. I've got this 1/2 inch dowel with a slot cut in the end of it and a piece of folded up sandpaper. I'll just put that in there while the piece is spinning and sand the inside. I'm going to start at 120 grit and work up through 400. And then I'll use my 2-inch disc starting at 80 grit to sand the top. And I think I'll probably use my Sandoflex. I don't have it set up right now, but I'll probably use it just to get this area right here. I think I can reach that, yeah. Yeah, I can reach that. So I'll get just that. And probably a little around this edge, because now that I've cleaned up the top, it's kind of sharp again around this edge, so I'll just sand it like that, much like I did on the outside. So I will show you 2 of those things as soon as I get my mask on. The lathe will be spinning at about 350. And that'll be pretty easy. I'll bring you back here in a bit. We'll put some sanding sealer on there. This is going to look nice. We'll see in a bit. I think we're in for a treat. I think this is going to look better than I thought it might. It's just beautiful, beautiful grain. It did sand up very nicely, very smooth. And I'm about 99% sure it's cherry. I don't know what else it would be. And this part right here looks like lace. When you see it up close, it's very, very thin, this right here. But it's sturdier than it looks. I suppose somebody could break it if they press their thumb on it or something. And I've been thinking about what this could be used for, because it's not exactly a bowl shape. I don't know if they make 2.5 inch candles. This is a 2 3/4 inch hole. So if they make 2.5 inch candles, it would be good for that. But I think better than that, just a little flower pot in there, and you could have live flowers or dried flowers. But I'm quite happy with it, and I think you're going to like it too once we see it upright in all of its glory, which we will do after another coat or 2 of this sanding sealer. 2 coats of shellac. I'll bring you back and we'll look it over, but it looks pretty good to me. What do you think? See you in a bit. Well, I've learned something on this piece, and I'll show you that in a bit. There's something I wanted to show you also. I've shown this before, so my regular viewers, please bear with me. Not everyone watches every video. There's various ways to abrade the finish in between coats and after the last coat. I used to use 4/0 steel wool, and it works really well, but it just makes such a mess, and I don't like the idea of all that steel mesh floating around the shop and breathing it in. So I started using these 3M abrasive pads. This is a gray one, this is a white one. I use the gray one in between all coats of sanding sealer and shellac, in between all coats. And after the final coat, which is what we have here, I use the white one, and that'll smooth it out even more than it is. It doesn't even need anything at this point. And you know, I would just spin the piece up, I'd fold this up, and I'd maybe stick it in here, you know, inside the bowl and outside like that, and just smooth it out, and that works pretty well. In the last year or so, I've found something that works even better, and I've shown this before, as I said, shown it before, but it's just such a great idea. I'm so proud of myself for coming up with it. I cut these, you see I cut a circle out of there. Well, I did the same thing with the white one, and this is just easier and better. And that just sticks right to your 2-inch sanding pad. Just sticks right on there, just like Velcro. And it's wonderful. It's the best thing I ever thought of. And oh my gosh, what a difference. What a difference. It just does such a great job. So I just wanted to share for the newbies. That really works well. Now, I do not use it on the outside of something like this. I don't do anything out here. And if it was bark, I wouldn't do anything out here because you just can't. You just can't. That's all. It's just too, I don't want to say rough because it's not rough, because I sanded it with my Sandoflex and it's got a finish on there and it's quite smooth, but it's jagged. It's got little nooks and crannies, and it will catch all of that kind of stuff, and it just makes a mess. So, and it isn't necessary. When you look at the outside of this piece, if it was just sitting on a table, you say, oh my gosh, that's awful. It must feel terrible. But then when you pick it up, you find out it's not. It's not terrible at all. Your eye expects it to be rough, but it's not. It just feels great. So just a little tip, and I'll show you what I learned here in just a second. Be sure you stick around to the end of the video so you can see the before and after shots of this piece. If you'd share the video, that'd be terrific. I'd really appreciate that. Thank you very kindly. Well, here it is, one cherry bowl in the books. Well, I guess it's not a bowl. I guess it's either a candle holder, or I think my preference is, like I said, a little pot. A little pot with some live flowers in it, live plant in it. Or you could put dried flowers in there if you wanted to, but I think it's just perfect for that. The top is just beautiful. Beautiful grain, beautiful colors. But here's what I learned. Remember I told you I had to sand this back because there was so much dullness rather than shininess. It looked shiny and then it didn't, and then there were some shiny places and some dull places. Well, there still is, but not anything like it was. And what I learned is I was applying a coat of sanding sealer like every 30 minutes, or as soon as it felt dry, I was applying another coat. Well, I got sick of doing that because it was just soaking in and it just wasn't looking good. So I gave it a night. I waited overnight and I came out the next day, and when I was putting the finish or the sanding sealer on here and inside, I thought, well, I'll go ahead and apply it to the outside as well. And now it just shines. And there's still some dull spots in there, but not like it was. The dull spots are just soft wood that just soaks it up and won't ever seal up. But it was just nasty looking, and now it's pretty dang shiny everywhere, and I think it looks really great. What do you think? Is that shine coming through? Just a great looking piece. I really like it. I like it a lot more than I did. So I think what was happening with the drying process is I wasn't letting it dry. I think it felt dry, but it wasn't cured, and it took overnight to do that. I think probably with successive coats I was melting the previous coat, and it just didn't have a chance to set up. But now it has had that chance, and it looks pretty great. And I'm very happy about that. Thank you, Jim from Pennsylvania, for sending this along for all to enjoy. If you like this video, thumbs up please, I'd sure appreciate it. If you're a subscriber, that is very kind of you. Thank you very much for that. If you're not a subscriber, you might consider becoming one. I put out regular videos about one a week, and I'd like to keep in touch. An easy way to subscribe is just click my picture you see there near the end of the video. Your comments are always welcome, and I read all of them. So for now, this is Phil, Shady Acres Woodshop, signing off.